Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. As you guys can see, the Corvette is still on the lift behind us. Today we're actually continuing our suspension upgrades. You know, we've already done the bushings, we've already done the 01 front subframe, we've already done some other stuff including some new axles. Well, today we're actually be installing the BC Racing coilovers. I know we talked about this in a previous video. I'll have a link to that video up above, and that way you know why we end up going with the BC coilovers. And so let's go ahead and get started on this. So this install is going to be a little bit different. Today we're going to be installing the rears first, then we're going to move up front, and hopefully we can get all this stuff documented and knocked out for you guys. So let's go ahead and get started on the back. Alright guys, we actually got a number of projects in the rear finished up. You can see we got the new bushings on top and on bottom. Not sure if you can see that. We got the new axle in, but we actually left a number of things disconnected. We left the electrical disconnected, the e-brake disconnected, the rear tow rod disconnected, just so that we have plenty of room to get back in here and get the upper coilover installed. So let's go ahead and get this slid into place. This shouldn't be too difficult. All right, so you guys will actually see I did put a floor jack in place, just pressing the rear control arm up. And you kind of have to find a good medium. You don't want it too low, you don't want it too high. That way you guys have a good enough reach that you can actually get the top connected as well as the bottom connected. You actually will see that we're still probably, we're a little off, we're actually a little high, so need to back that off a little bit. We'll get the rear lower mount in, and then we'll get the uppers all connected. Alright, so we got the rear 24mm nut and bolt on. I always put the nut on the back, the bolt is going through from the front. We have the floor jack pressing up on the lower control arm. What we're trying to do is get the coilover up into place and fully tight. That way we don't risk stripping these upper 13mm bolts going from holding the upper coilover mount in. So we have finished the rear coilover install. The lower mount torques to 107 foot-pounds. The upper mount is going to torque to 22 foot-pounds. And the one piece of advice I have when you're putting these upper screw mounts in, make sure that you push the lower control arm up enough with the floor jack, and make sure that you guys can thread these two bolts in by hand, because if you screw up the threads, you're pretty much screwed, because this is the chassis itself, and that really can't be fixed. I mean, you literally would have to cut a hole in the body inside the trunk to try to fix that thread. So yeah, be careful with that. Just make sure you thread those bolts in all the way as far as you can by hand. Then go ahead and stick a tool on it, but just be careful. It's just one piece of advice I have for you guys. The lower, you really can't mess up. It's just a nut and bolt. So like I said, 22 foot-pounds, 107 foot-pounds, and we are done in the back. Obviously there's wiring, there's e-brakes, there's tow rods and stuff that have to be connected and torqued down, but that's pretty much it for the coilover install. So that's going to be the same for the passenger rear and driver rear. Next we're going to go up front, take that apart, get started on all those suspension mods, and get the front coilovers installed as well. Alright, to finish up the coilover install, this is actually one of the front coilovers. You guys can see we have the 13mm bolts. When I took the car apart initially, I just saved them on here. And then you guys will also notice that I have an upper mount here. This mount is actually from Energy Suspension. The part number for the urethane bushings, polyurethane bushings, is 3.8104G. This might also come in red, so if you want to get these bushings in red, these upper shock mount bushings, the part number would probably be 3.8104R if you guys wanted these in red. And I believe these are like $7 for the set. You're only going to need one of those kits, because basically the C6 Corvette and C5, I'm not really 100% positive on the C7, but they only have these upper shock bushings on the top. The rears have their own kind of platform. You guys remember that. It's just got their own separate mount that bolts to the frame. So this will actually bolt on and go through the frame. I'm not sure if you see that hole. Now I've done this a number of different ways, but leaving the upper and lower control arms separate, not having the brake or anything, this might make this project easier. So what I'm going to do is basically just stick this on the lower control arm push up on it and hopefully tighten it down. So let's go ahead and get this front coilover installed. All right, well, the front control arm is finally in. It took me a little bit to get this thing situated, but basically you got your 13mm bolts up here. There's 13mm nuts that go through the control arm there on the bottom. Then up top here you got your 14mm nut, you've got your washer, and then your polyurethane bushing up top and bottom. And I'm not sure what all you guys can see, but and to actually tighten that nut on the very top of the coilover, I just took a pair of channel locks and I kind of grabbed this upper part of the coilover mount. I just held it. I mean, I didn't hold it with like a lot of strength. I just held it in place, and I was able to put a wrench on the very top here in between the frame and the fiberglass inner fender part, and I was able to get that nut tightened down. Now that's supposed to tighten down to 19 foot-pounds, but when I did the other side to try to get it to 19, I ended up smashing the lower bushing. So I got it as tight as I could, and we should be good to go. And like I said, I didn't want to deform the polyurethane upper coilover mount. So that's 19. The lowers are 21 foot-pounds, and that will actually be it for the front coilover install. Now, we are not done with this project at all. We obviously got the brakes and everything else to put on, but when we get the car back finally on the ground and all four wheels back on the car, you know, we'll have to adjust the suspension then, because I think right now the suspension is set super low, and with our big tires, I think we're just gonna hit the fenders and whatnot. So alright guys, so that's pretty much gonna be it for the coilover install. The only thing we really have to do is actually loosen the front passenger side up. I think I told you that I briefly kind of crushed the, I didn't crush it, but I kind of smushed the upper polyurethane bushing. So I'm going to loosen that up, make sure that looks good, and we should be good there. So I'm not sure if you guys can actually see that. Yeah, a little bit. It's smashed a little bit. But we'll fix that, and that's pretty much it for the coilover install. Now, I do need to put the wheels back on the car. I need to adjust everything, but I'm probably going to save that for a separate video just because I'm not sure how bad the adjustments are going to be. Plus, I'm actually waiting for a grease gun fitting so that I can fill up the lower and upper ball joints, and, you know, because we did that suspension rebuild recently. So if you guys want to see that Corvette update, you know, the suspension updates and all that stuff, make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on your bell notifications, and I should have part numbers and links for the coilovers themselves, for the bushings that we talked about, and any other specialized tools that we had to use for the coilover install. So, and also don't forget to check out our website, BonecrrusherSS.com. Thanks guys, have a great one.